Yes, sir. We're going to bring up Lieutenant General Harry Radegui, our good and great friend, CEO of the National Cybersecurity Center, live from the National Cybersecurity Center, I see, just outside its doors. Harry, how are you today, sir?
Doing very well, David and Scott. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your leadership, and we're going to let you take it away here, sir.
Thanks, David. Well, first off, let me just congratulate our co-chair today, Andrei Sertnowski, for the fascinating international panel discussion that he just not only assembled, but also moderated. I agree with you. I thought that was an outstanding discussion with lots of wonderful insights from those on the front lines of this cybersecurity endeavor that we're all on. For now, it is my privilege to be joined live today by Shelly Brunswick. And Shelly is the Chief Operations Officer at the Space Foundation. Also just down the street, frankly, in the same town as the National Cybersecurity Center here in Colorado Springs. And let me just tell you a little bit about Shelly and her distinguished career. She's a space acquisition and program management leader. She was a congressional liaison official for the United States Air Force. And as I mentioned, her current role is as Chief Operations Officer for the Space Foundation. And in that role, she actually oversees the Center for Innovation and Education, the Symposium 365, as they refer to it, and the Global Alliance. And also, Shelly chairs both the Women in Aerospace Foundation and the Space Entrepreneurship at Todd Ayers. Shelly also hosts the Women's Global Gathering annually at the Space Symposium held here in Colorado Springs, and is one of only 35 women worldwide that has been selected by the United Nations as a mentor for its Space for Women program. And last week, during the America's Future Series Space Innovation Summit, Shelly led a Women Leading Space panel, and it was magnificent. She was joined by Erin Miller, the Executive Director of the Space Information Sharing Analysis Center, ISAC, Nicole Robinson, the President of Ursa Space Systems, and Dr. Laura Forsick, the owner of Astrolytical, who interestingly has her doctorate degree in physics and planetary science. I would just say, with a quick description of Shelly, who's joining us here live today, that she is a pure human dynamo. Also, today it's my privilege to introduce Lauren Knuceberger, the Air Force CIO. And Lauren is traveling today on business, but she pre-recorded a fireside chat with Shelly. And as the Air Force CIO, Lauren supports 20,000 cyber operations and support personnel around the globe with a portfolio valued at $17 billion. Now, prior to the Air Force, Lauren actually began working in the United States government at the National Security Agency as a cryptography and intelligence analyst. She then moved to industry and worked at the American Management Systems as a business systems analyst. She then went to CACI and served as a division manager and program director for large IT programs and the intelligence community finance, and was founder and president of Excellent Inc., a consulting and venture partner with Next Generation Angels. She then came back into government, came into the United States Air Force, first serving as Chief Transformation Officer and Director of Cyberspace Innovation, and then eventually moving to her role that she holds now as Chief Information Officer for the entire United States Air Force. Ms. Knuceberger has been recognized by FedScoop Top Women in Technology, the Jimmy Doolittle Fellowship Award, and the Washington Fed 100. And Shelly, now I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce your pre-recorded fireside chat, probably minus the fire that you had with Lauren. Over to you, Shelly.
Well, thank you, General. It's an honor to be joining you today and the esteemed audience. And again, I want to thank your sponsors for making today's program possible. Without sponsorship, none of these great information sharing opportunities exist. So thank you, General, and it's an honor to join you. It was a pleasure talking with Lauren last week. We discussed a number of topics, and you're obviously going to hear about those. So I don't want to take too much away. But Laura has a very wide breadth of information. Obviously, in her role as the Chief Information Officer, we talked about what keeps her up at night. What is that number one cyber threat she's worried about? We also talked about the workforce. How are we nurturing and bringing that new workforce together? And then we talked about space and obviously the Space Foundation and and her role as an entrepreneur and looking at entrepreneurship opportunities to bring more entrepreneurs to look at tech solutions for the government. And we rounded out our panel with a discussion on what was some great advice that mentors had given her over her lifetime. And she shared that with us. So I wanted to share that with you, General, that we had a really, we had a short discussion, but we covered a lot of great topics. Very insightful woman, and I look forward to watching our discussion again. So thank you for inviting me to come back today.
Great. Well, thank you, Shelly. I resisted joining you because I wanted to share firsthand with our audience today your discussion. But for those several people who tuned in, they said it was fabulous. So let's roll.
Well, thank you, General Radigi. It's an honor to join you today, as well as your distinguished audience. And I want to thank our sponsors for making this possible. Well, thank you, Lauren, for joining us. I know we have a number of hard-hitting questions to get through, but first I'd like to provide you the opportunity to have an opening statement.
Sure. So just want to say it's great to be here with you today. It's been great to get to know you a little bit, Shelly, and really thankful to Harry Radigi and the America's Future series for bringing us together to discuss some really great cyber topics. In general, this looks like an incredible event. Folks from Singapore and Israel, all across the defense industrial base, all of those really great partners that we need to all have in the fight as we look toward really the current and future of cyber. So really pleased to be here today. And also was very excited to hear that Ensign is the sponsor of the event. Definitely love those guys, incredible partners. So thanks to them for putting this all together.
Excellent. Well, wonderful. Well, I know we have a hard-hitting 30 minutes, so I'm going to just jump right into some of the great questions that we've received from the audience. So our first one is, can you describe for me the cyber threat that keeps you up at night? What is that, and how should we work to prevent that from happening?
So, ironically, the thing that worries me the most in cyber is us. The scariest thing to me would be if we continue to throw the brakes into anything that is different, and we completely squander the opportunity that we have right now to adopt zero trust principles, to completely modernize our infrastructure, to break down silos, to educate our workforce. These are all things that we have to do now. And so the thing that is most likely to keep me up at night is not a cyber boogeyman somewhere or a state threat. It is that we will not do what we need to move forward fast enough. And I'm doing everything I can to make sure that nightmare does not become a reality. But the folks that have been around for a while, know how much work we have to do to move some of these rocks. So that is the thing, that is the urgency, and that's where we're focused.
That's excellent. And as Harry introduced you, you have an amazing background. So one of the questions I have is, can you share an example of your own cyber risk experience and how you dealt with it?
Sure. So I'll just share, when I first joined the Air Force, about 3.5 years ago, and completely by accident. Some people know this story. I kind of came in, I'd never really had any DoD experience, and I was just trying to take things in and really learn, what are those top opportunities for change, for trade space? What are the things that are in people's way as we're trying to innovate and move through? And I used to joke, we don't want to, light the fires of innovation and get ready for launch just to have it go right into the brick wall of some sort of bureaucracy that I have yet to understand. And so, I was going through that, and there were a lot of different roadblocks, but cyber accreditation was just coming up over and over and over again. And I was finding more and more examples of places where we knew full well that our current system was just complete Swiss cheese, and we were failing to adopt more modern systems that were inherently more secure. And so we had groups like, and we've come a long way in this, by the way. We still have a lot of room to go, but we have come a long way in the last 3 years with fast track ATO, continuous ATO, the adoption of DevSecOps, the adoption of commercial technologies. But if I go back to first running into Kessel Run a few years back, these guys were able to deploy code to the warfighter at least twice a day, even a few years ago, whereas many folks, they were releasing maybe once a year, or if they were really good, they were releasing once every 6 months. And that's security features as well as functionality. And they were replacing a system that was inherently less secure than what they were developing, with warfighters that were saying, please, I need this functionality now. And so, we were looking at this, and all of us were just kind of shaking our heads as to why we were doing business this way. And since I was, the chief transformation officer at the time, kind of took that on as a mantle that we needed to reform that. And so worked with Kessel Run, worked with the CIO of the Air Force, Bill Marion, the CISO, Wanda Jones Heath, and a number of other partners, to really kind of carry that mantle and help educate people on how silly what we were doing was, and how adopting these new processes would make us inherently more secure and add actually some security, even just through speed. And so we started to leverage what Kessel Run was doing with their CI/CD pipeline, bringing in testers sooner, bringing in pen testers to kind of take everything through the paces. And so, I kind of looked at that as, what is my risk appetite? And everything that I saw said that the things where we think we're being risk averse, we're actually just taking on a huge amount of risk by not trying new things. We're passing that risk along every day to the warfighter. And I really enjoy, Gwen from SpaceX, the CEO over there, when she talks about risk, and she's just like, what, if we have something that, if we have a rocket blow up, on like a real launch, that is horrible. We do everything that we do to avoid that. If we want to blow up a few rockets on the test range on our way to getting that incredible capability that we trust, that part's fine. And so I think that we were failing to blow up our rockets on the test range in the past, and we were pushing that to the, the production range. And so as much as we can shift that risk to test and away from the warfighter, that's what we want to do. We're starting to do that more. And so that's really the way that I look at it.
That's an excellent point. And I have heard Elon Musk say it's cheaper to blow up a rocket and test than it is to study it forever. So sometimes, if you're going to make mistakes, make them quick, learn from it, and move forward.
Amen. Elon is a smart man.
Absolutely. Well, during that whole time, you talked a lot about your team and the workforce. So what kind of talent are you looking for to help you serve this mission? And how do you train for an always dynamic threat environment?
So I'll start on the training side. So we do have some of the best cyber training in the world, and some of the best cyber operators in the world. And they, they're working with Cybercom, they're working with NSA, they're working with the commercial hacking community, and really just, your independent cyber researchers, even more and more. And they have a lot of different things at their disposal to continue to update their craft, as well as a lot of really great intelligence to keep in mind. And so we're doing a pretty good job today. I would love to see more with bringing in, our folks that were not hired to do cyber, and really getting them to be also quite cyber savvy. And we have education programs, but I'd like to see us leverage things like Digital U even more for that. And for the folks that don't know Digital U, that is basically our training as a service learning option for the Air Force. So our airmen and guardians, they can show up to Digital U and they can go learn about anything. They can learn about cybersecurity. They can learn to become an ethical hacker. They want to learn to code in Python. They can do that. If they want to learn about networking, cloud engineering, pretty much any of the tech and digital topics that are relevant today, they can go there and learn. And we're able to see that growing digital skills inventory among our workforce, and people feel that we are then really cultivating them more for the future, which is what they want us to do. They see the writing on the wall just as clearly as I do, maybe even clearer. And so that's what we're doing. Now, as far as recruiting, we are trying to recruit more and more, out of high school, out of college, especially for our military cyber folks. But we also have organizations like Platform One and Kessel Run that are using more of the direct hire authorities to bring people in to work in those very innovative organizations and to look at cyber in an inherently different way. And we're also doing more with, with SREs, with reliability engineering, kind of chaos engineering, which, that it's not cyber per se, but it is. You have to be able to look at everything from cyber threats to, just throttling of bandwidth and different systems going offline. And so I think that the more that we are attacking new problems that resonate, and people can kind of see the power of our mission, that more people are interested. And I will say that, I was one of the first kind of experiments in the Air Force with what we call HQEs, the highly qualified expert, which is a special type of designator it's an SES equivalent, but it's specifically to bring people in. And now we have a lot of folks that are doing that, an increasing number of folks who really want to come in because we have incredible problems that you cannot solve anywhere else. And so people are compelled by that. But it's not just people coming in to serve directly. We are partnering so closely with our contractors, whether that's our traditional DID partners or our large tech partners or our small business partners. Everybody's in the fight. And of course, one of the newer partnerships, kind of from my tenure, that I'm most passionate about is the hacking community. Because, we love bringing in people that think differently and, basically saying, hey, I want to make some money and not get arrested and still get to hack a DoD network or a DoD weapons system. And we are able to do that. And it's awesome. And we always learn something new. And also those researchers always gain, even greater appreciation for our mission too. And so I think it's just really important because, once upon a time, we didn't have such a huge divide between government and military and commercial. We were working just so much more closely together. And I think that's starting to happen again, where I think that, a few years ago, we started to come to a new inflection point where we were able to break down some more of those barriers that had been in place for a while. And it is much easier now to do business with the government. There are a lot of things we can still improve for sure. We could write books on this. I'm sure we have written a few books on this. But, just so many people are playing in this landscape, and all of those household names, in tech, we're working with them. A lot of the small businesses, we're working with them. And so it's a pretty cool time to be in this mission space, solving these types of problems.
I think that's excellent. And I just want to share with our audience that, that is what the Space Foundation focuses on. We have two main pillars. We have our Symposium 365, and many of you are familiar with Symposium, but our other side of the house is our Center for Innovation and Education. And that's an online platform to create workforce development and economic opportunity so all individuals can find their place into the space ecosystem. And cyber is a huge part of that space. And so reaching into, high school and junior high and elementary school to reach out to diversity and inclusion, to see that there are multiple pathways into this space ecosystem. And cyber is one of the major areas. And again, around the world, there aren't enough cyber experts, there aren't enough data analytics. So we're in that partnership with you to help create that robust workforce pipeline.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love it. And you mentioned the diversity and inclusion piece, and that is so huge now too. And I think that there are a lot of efforts right now to try to get women and minorities and just folks that never thought about being involved in cyber into cyber and related fields. And but I think we need to do more. We are recruiting at HBCUs. We're looking at Girls Who Code, Black Girls Who Code. There are all of these great organizations that are bringing people together. But I do think that we need to do more. And I got to give a shout out to Udacity. They're one of our digital U partners, and they reached out last month for Women's History Month and said, hey, we've got some scholarships available. We'd really love to award them to some women in the military who are deserving, who are interested in doing a nano degree in data science or AI. And when we did the data call maybe a year earlier, we had so few women express interest in participating in the program. It was just majorly predominantly men. And it was so incredible, the response. We had so many women that we completely blew out the number of scholarships, and they were kind enough to dramatically increase the number they were going to give due to the demand. But that just told me that there is a lot of demand, but we have to tell people, you know what, this is for you. We really want you to do this. We need you in the fight. We want to invest in you. So that's huge. I'm glad you brought that up.
Absolutely. We have to provide those role models, and we have to provide pathways. And again, we have a lot of an international audience. And so cyber partnership internationally is critically important too. So building those relationships, building those pipelines, and helping individuals in other regions of the world that don't see space or cyber as something they can be part of is a fallacy. And that's why the Space Foundation is out there. And that's why America's Future Series does events like this to show that there are opportunities for all in space and cyber. Now,
Absolutely.
you also mentioned talking about small and medium-sized businesses, and I find it really fascinating that you were, and you probably still are, an entrepreneur in reality as well as probably at heart. So what kind of advice would you offer to businesses, especially the small businesses in this unique threat environment?
So in terms of protecting themselves, or in terms of doing business with the government?
I think both those questions are probably very relevant to this audience. So let's start with protecting themselves and national security in the chain of the weakest link in the chain is where the predators get in. So we'll talk there, and then I think many in our audience would be interested in your perspective of how do you do business with the government, because obviously there is that perception that it can be a little challenging.
Absolutely. So for the small businesses, I think that, there is a period of time where you just have to, see, will my product work? And you're getting your systems up. And in the beginning, you're probably not really thinking about cybersecurity at all, unless you're a cybersecurity company specifically, because there is just, there's that ramp up time. But there does very quickly become a point when, if you start gathering customer information, if you start to have, enough employees that, really your employees are all threat vectors. We're all threat vectors for, a corporate network. As you start to have IP, as you start to have something to lose, you really have to take this seriously. And, small businesses, you're going to be too small to do it yourselves. So it comes down to finding those trusted partners to put in place the the tools that you need to be successful, leveraging those partnerships, and just really remembering that in everything you do, you have to protect that data. I mean, it's a strategic asset. I mean, the good news is there are plenty of people out there for small businesses to rely on. A lot of the same folks that we rely on. The large tech vendors for office collaboration and for cloud support. A lot of the same business software as a service providers as well. So, the good news is it's pretty easy to find those folks to help. And I think we're going to talk a little bit later about some kind of consumer side tips for cyber. And so I'll save kind of the individual common sense things for that segment. But as far as doing business with the government, I think that if you're a business that really doesn't know anything about the government yet, the best way to dip your toe in the water is to go through a challenge. AFWorks does some great challenges. DARPA does some great challenges. If you see something and you're thinking, you know what, we really have the skills to do this, jump in, because it'll be a great place to learn about our mission. And it'll be a great place for us to see your capabilities. If you're not really sure where you insert, you know, I really like, if you're not sure, I would pretty much say start commercial. The sales cycle is shorter. The customers are easier to deal with. I can say that, you know, and so, you know, definitely start there, get your revenue moving solidly, because most of the time with small businesses, with founders that didn't come from the military, or if you're not kind of a really, really super niche, you know, kind of tech capability, you know, we really prefer dual use in general. And it's going to be safer for us to see that you have the commercial track record. So once you get to the point where you're proven in commercial, that's when we start looking at really big contracts. But if you have an idea even now, and you just want to dip your toe in kind of with that particular idea, no matter what it is, you know, you could just see something silly that we're doing and you have a better idea. The SIBR program and the SITR program, those are pretty awesome. It's a very low bar. It's more of like a kind of a small white paper and like a PowerPoint pitch. And you can get smaller grants faster too. You know, sometimes it's 150 grand or $500,000. But if you're a really small business, you know, that's something. That's enough to get moving on a project, and it is a grant. And so, you know, you have room to fail and you have room to iterate with the government customer. So, you know, we are trying to have pathways for everyone. But, you know, a lot of businesses, you know, actually start out thinking like, oh, it'll be really easy to do business with the government and we're going to focus on the government. You're going to fail. If that's the strategy, it will fail every single time. There has to be a great amount of focus, a great amount of mission intimacy, or there has to be a really great dual use or a specific pilot to go through. But that's true in the commercial world too. You have to have deep focus on your market. You have to have something that you do better than anybody else. And you have to have intense focus on your customers. So a lot of those same lessons in the commercial world happen in government. And actually, sometimes we can be more forgiving than a commercial market. So there's I guess, a little bit of silver lining there.
Excellent. And for those of our viewers, the Space Foundation, we do have a space commerce entrepreneurship program. And you can go on to our website right now, spacefoundation.org. And we have 15 different webinars that you can view, that you can understand what is the space ecosystem. But these are principles no matter whether you want to be an entrepreneur in space or cyber. I mean, finance, and obviously cybersecurity, protecting your IP. And again, dual use is wonderful. If you can create a product in the commercial market, then you can look at tech insertion into the government. And for those of you who are looking for an idea for tech transfer, which is the government to industry, you could go to the NASA Technology Transfer Office. They have thousands of patents that are waiting to be commercialized. And again, as Lauren said, there are several SIBR or SITR grants that you could apply for to help commercialize and bring technology to the marketplace. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. And Shelly, that triggered a memory too. So in addition to the NASA Tech Transfer Office, the AFRL Tech Transfer Office also has plenty of patents that an entrepreneur could take and commercialize and even sell back to us. So there is a lot of opportunity. And on the space side, you know, we have been a huge backer of lots of companies, and SpaceX is one of them. You know, I remember hearing that Colonel Raymond at the time, now our 4-star Space Force commander, you know, met with Elon Musk about the time that they were running out of money. And the Air Force took AFSpace at the time, Air Force Space Command, you know, took a gamble on this space startup. And there have been so many other stories of that where, you know, if you are an awesome space company and you have great engineers, you have great ideas, you know, there is so much room to work with you on that tech with Air Force, with NASA, with DARPA. You know, lots of partnership opportunity there.
Absolutely. And for our, and there is also the Department of Energy too. And for our international audience, you may not be able to apply for some of these activities, but there is also the European Space Agency has a technology transfer office as well. So again, there's lots of opportunity to harness those patents and unlock that technology and create economic opportunity, as well as better the quality of life that we have here on planet Earth. So always an important topic. Now, I'm going to pivot back to some of the cyber threats. Obviously, we've had some major attacks and hacks over the recent months and ongoing activities where they're not just at the national level, they're at the municipality level, there's ransomware. So why is the cyber threat so difficult for audiences to comprehend and address when we're seeing this in the news every day?
Yeah, so economics are in play here, for sure. If you have a $6 trillion cybercrime market and you only have 100 billion, 300 billion, cybersecurity market, that is pretty wild. That's a huge curb to come up against. It is profitable for actors to try to infiltrate systems. And so one of the things that corporations and governments have to do is we have to at least spend enough on all of the, the cyber fortification, all of the cyber strategies and tooling that we need to make it very expensive for those actors to hack us, to make it really hard and to maybe have them question what they could really get by hacking us. Like, hey guys, come on in. We really don't care if you get this data. Spend lots of money and get something that's useless to you. So it's not surprising, I guess, that more and more hacks are coming through. I think also there's the good news story in that is that we are catching the hacks and we're being very open about it. For a long time, I think probably there were plenty of hacks that were not as publicized. We didn't see them as fast, just we society. And so I think this is something that, the entire world is looking at with laser focus, and that companies are increasingly taking seriously too. And the companies that have been the target of the most recent cyber attacks have worked very closely. And I think that, folks have learned a lot too. And I just see it all as a big old drumbeat that we need to be moving towards zero trust technologies, and that we need to be very serious about adopting modern technology and, just going through that, the normal, just cyber hygiene, common sense, and just taking this all very seriously.
I agree. And again, that is one of the lessons we highlight in our space commerce entrepreneurship program with cyber, is think about it as you're building the system. We can see with space, we built a glass house and with not a lot of security at the moment, but that is all changing now. And the internet is wide open. It was built that way. So now as we pivot into this era of zero trust, you have to look at, if you're going to be an entrepreneur or any business, how do you build cybersecurity into the plan and not look at how you strap it on afterwards, because that becomes much more laborious. And I'm sure, Lauren, with your entrepreneurial background, you've experienced maybe where you've helped companies that may have thought they didn't go into it with that cyber in mind in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think that's natural. And I think it still happens that, there is that phase where you have to make sure that stuff works first. But you do have to build it into the design. You do have to have a way to test it. You do have to make sure that you're not going to lose all of that capability or your reputation, from someone being able to do something that's just way too easy. So, yeah, absolutely.
Have we missed anything you might have wanted to highlight?
We talked about some really great things today. I don't know if we talked about kind of the consequences in a way that, consumers can really react. But, I did a video last year where we made it more of a game show, hey, what could they win, Johnny? If you were a victim of a cyber attack. And, you could be on your own reality TV show and not even know it. Because it's not that hard to hack a web camera if you click on a phishing link. You could generate your processing power to someone's Bitcoin mining operation, and use your energy to make them very wealthy through their botnet. You could donate to noble causes that you never knew that you wanted to donate to by having your financial information stolen. There are just so many things that can happen in the cyber realm today. And very simple things that you can do to protect yourself. And so, and your business, and in this case, also your government. And oftentimes, even on the government side, the most crippling breaches happened as a result of not having common sense. Someone took a laptop home and left it alone, and oh goodness, it just happened to have all of these TTPs for how we do cyber offensive ops on it. Or oops, I saved that really, really critical information about a key weapon system on my commercial network. These are the types of things that unfortunately do happen, and then we have to clean up the mess, and they are so incredibly avoidable. So I would just say, folks, we don't have to be, we don't have to run around terrified in the cyber domain, but we do have to be smart. It's just like being street smart. You assess, you assess whether you should walk down that dark alley or not. And sometimes you decide, maybe that's not a good idea. We need to have that same awareness when it comes to cyber, and that same gut reaction when we are doing something we shouldn't be doing in the cyber domain, the same way we would walking down a dark alley alone at night.
Well, Lauren, thank you so much. That was wonderful closing comments. And again, I'd like to thank General Radigi, America's Future Series, and the sponsors that make this event possible. Harry, you've put on a fantastic event. I know this is the second of a 4-part series this month, so thank you so much. I'm honored to join you, and it's been a pleasure. I've learned so much from you, Lauren. So I'm going to take those nuggets of wisdom you've shared and share those with the next generation. So thank you so much. And I'd like to close out our interview session. So thank you.
Thanks, Shelly. It's been a blast. Thanks, Harry. Thanks, America's Futures.